The Voyager crew are having a party, and it's distinctly wedding-shaped. The couple in question are B'Elanna and Paris, and the event is serious enough to warrant using replicator rations on dress uniform for the senior staff, though I notice nobody's bothered to alter the dock's holomatrix. Maybe the prop department didn't have any in green. B'Elanna arrives with Chakotay to act as the father, giving her away. I suppose I could point out that this is a bit weird, given the topic of her fantasies in the Season 2 episode Persistence of Vision, but let's not ruin her big day. Janeway's conducting the festivities, Starfleet apparently being fine with the maritime myth that captains can just straight-up marry people. I guess the Federation is a lot less strict about such things now there's no financial stuff to sort out if they get divorced. B'Elanna and Paris run through the vows they've written for themselves, both of which amount to "I'm shit and thanks for having me." Rings are swapped and Janeway declares them husband and wife, referring to Paris as Lieutenant, I note. As rice is thrown over them, I see he has a pip bag too. Has he been promoted again, or has someone made a boo-boo? The rice falls to the floor, and then through it, as the structure itself wobbles. Something very odd indeed is going on. A log from Janeway adds to the oddness. Not only is the marriage out of the blue, but there's also a new baby on board, despite no mention of a pregnancy. We're told their warp drive has had some upgrades too, meaning they'll be home in only 2 more years. Maybe we've skipped forward over some important events. As Paris is organising a holodeck honeymoon, B'Elanna is making sure Seven will take care of her engineering department properly while she's gone. Her micromanagement gets the better of her, and she insists on helping with one final check before she officially goes on leave. Just as well she did, as the check leads them to the wibbly Jeffries tube that Rice from earlier fell into. A quick scan reveals a problem serious enough to postpone her honeymoon. We switch to a meeting so everyone can learn the bad news together. That new warp bobbins, the one that's getting them home quicker, it's breaking down areas around engineering. I suppose I could point out that the mess hall where the rice was thrown is nowhere near engineering, but now's probably not the time. Janeway suggests the obvious, turn off the new warp core stuff. Unfortunately, B'Elanna's already tried that, and it didn't make any difference. We'll try and repair the damage while we figure out why it's still happening, but we're past prevention. Later on, B'Elanna returns to her cabin. Or is it their cabin now she's married? That's a thought. Do they get a bigger room? The Intrepid class has VIP rooms available, so maybe couples get one of those. Anyway, she goes back to her/their cabin. She starts a log entry to say she hasn't made any progress, before abruptly feeling cold and raising the room temperature. She goes into the bathroom to wash up, discovering something on her cheek in the process. It would appear their problem is not limited to the ship. Paris arrives shortly after, which I guess answers the shared quarters question, and complains that it's too hot. Bugger all that though, as he finds B'Elanna shivering on the floor of the bathroom. A quick trip to sickbay shows us she's not alone. There are other crew members whose cells are breaking down too. The worst affected are from engineering, but everybody's got the same problem to a greater or lesser degree. It would appear that Voyager and everything on it are super fucked. Well, that's not quite true. Their equipment and anything replicated is showing the problem, but they picked up some veg on an away mission a week back, and that's unaffected. The same is true for some supplies they've picked up over the last few months. It might not be the warp upgrades after all, instead being something that happened to them a while back and whose effects are only now being felt. We pop to astrometrics so we can use big screen mode while we check our diary. Plenty of things have happened to them, but nothing really fits the bill, so we leave them to keep trying. While they work, we'll check on B'Elanna in sickbay. Paris is there with promises about a wonderful holodeck honeymoon. Faced with the threat of spending an uninterrupted week with Tom Paris, she dies. Attempts to bring her back fail, and she's declared officially cocked by the doctor. He begins some post-mortem scans to try and find out more about the condition that killed her. That seems a bit tactless to me, but I suppose the doc's new assistant hasn't really had the chance to sit in on many autopsies yet, so this will be good work experience. While Paris the widower gets handy with a laser scalpel, Chakotay and Tuvok are still in astrometrics. They've ruled out loads of events by checking them against things they picked up at the same time which don't show signs of degradation. The next on their list is an adventure we've covered on this channel. Near the end of Season 4, Voyager visited a certain Demon-class planet where we met some silver goop. Long story short, we left copies of at least 2/3 of the Voyager crew there, complete with memories. Copies, eh? That sounds like the sort of thing we could use for a plot where we do really serious shit to the crew with no lasting consequences next week. Looks like Chakotay's had the same thought, and we go to sickbay to check on his hunch. Some scans reveal B'Elanna's corpse has some distinctly odd components, and an injection proves the theory. Janeway is perplexed when she's told she had no knowledge of being a copy and possesses all the memories of her childhood. The doc explains that after the original Voyager had left, they must all have forgotten their copies and resumed the journey of their donors. To be fair, by the looks of things, they've done a far better job of it too. It also answers why they've all started breaking down. The new warp upgrades were checked to make sure they're not harmful to normal humanoid life, but the Goop crew aren't normal humanoid life. That's why it's killing them and destabilizing Goop Voyager too. Even Goop Doc will eventually go offline. He may be a perfect data copy of the original and thus immune to what's affecting the others, but he's running on Goop hardware. Once that stops working, he's fucked. Goop Chakotay voices the obvious solution: go back to the planet that made them. They were created to survive there, so if anything's going to work, it's that. The problem is that Goop Janeway has a little too much of original Janeway in her. As far as she's concerned, her job is to get back to Earth. That she's a Silver Goop copy who's never set foot on the planet before are mere technicalities. We'll change Goop Voyager's environment to emulate the demon planet they came from while we look for the closest one to set down on. Once we've landed on another Y-class planet, we can figure out how to stop the problem and get back to Earth. The crew take the news that they're photocopies pretty well, most of them anyway. Goop Paris is a bit pissed about not being the original. You'd think he'd be pleased to learn that he's technically no longer a widower. Goop Kim seems fine with it though, perhaps because this is the most interesting thing that's ever happened to his character. Is it possible to copy a blank sheet of paper? Goop Paris manages to bring his mood down, asking what he thinks will happen if they ever manage to return to Earth. That family he's so close to, the parents with whom he has such a strong bond, they're not his parents. Having one of the few things we've learned about him in the last 5 years torn away seems to remove the wind from his sails, but the alternative is just waiting for death, so he's going to carry on anyway. Goop Janeway's trying to carry on as normal too, and that means her weekly dinner with Goop Chakotay. Her appetite takes a hit when learning 3 more crew are dead, and disappears entirely when Goop Chakotay tells her we should turn back. The home that Goop Janeway is flying them towards was never theirs to begin with, and the quest to return wasn't really hers either. Goop Janeway isn't ready to be anything else yet, or maybe isn't able. Goop Voyager's getting worse, the hull itself starting to ripple now, and the crew aren't doing much better. Goop Doc's running out of ideas, but suggests finding the crew of original Voyager may be a solution. A sample of the DNA which made them to begin with could provide an unaltered base from which to repair the rest. Of course that'll mean finding them, and space is called that for a reason. It's a nice thought, but hardly a workable solution. Goop Doc glitches, his mobile emitter degrading, and he returns to sickbay while Goop Janeway is called to the bridge. We found a Y-class planet, and it fits the bill nicely. As we get ready to land, the locals take issue with the idea this is their mining area and they don't take kindly to strangers. Threats are followed by some pooping, and we're in no state to put up a fight. Goop Janeway orders us to withdraw, and after a little open rebellion from Goop Paris gets shut down, we leg it as fast as our wobbly engines will carry us. We also start to broadcast a general distress signal. The chance of original Voyager hearing it might be a long shot, but we're running out of options. The question of which direction to leg it comes up, and Goop Janeway points us towards the Alpha Quadrant once more before retiring to her ready room. That's the proverbial straw for Goop Chakotay, and he follows her in. He thinks it's time to give up the role she's acting and be who she is, a native of the demon-class planet they left behind. She tries to argue the point, but he's had enough of that shit by now, so he just carks it instead. As arguments go, dying is a difficult one to beat, and Goop Janeway doesn't have a counterpoint. After telling the bridge crew that there's a job opening, she orders them to turn around and head back to the planet they came from. It might be too little too late. We're 60 or so people down, and Goop Voyager looks like shit. Goop Doc's gone, and Goop Paris is on the way out too. There's also a distinct lack of Goop Tuvok in the meeting as well. We can be back at the demon planet in a few weeks, but the odds of getting there intact are utter bobbins. That's why Goop Janeway wants to launch a beacon made from the materials they've gathered on the way so it won't degrade, and fill it with their mission data and personal logs. If getting back to the planet fails, she wants there to be something in the universe that'll prove they existed. Some unexpected shaking draws the meeting to a close. Goop Kim takes the first officer's seat, so I guess he finally got a promotion after all. A bit of science manages to make the shaking stop just before Goop Voyager kabooms, or should that be kasplats, and the remaining crew breathe a sigh of relief. Except Goop Janeway, who doesn't breathe a sigh of anything on account of being a corpse. 2 promotions in one day, eh? Goop Kim's been more successful in 45 minutes than the original managed in 5 years. Of course, there's not much ship or crew left to be captain of, but it's the thought that counts. It's looking a hell of a lot like we're not going to get back to the Demon Planet, but at least we have that probe to launch with all the logs on it. Speaking of which, the launch fails and it's destroyed. Well, shit. Not to worry though, as we spotted a ship on long-range scans, and it looks decidedly Voyager-shaped. They might be able to help, but we need to get their attention first, and that means dropping out of warp speed to do it, as half of our communication system has already turned into silver jelly. And when I say drop out of warp, I do literally mean drop out of it. Space brakes aren't working, so we'll need to shit out the warp core and slow down the hard way. That's not ideal, obviously, but we'll have to stop sometime, so it might as well be now. The core gets farted into space, Goop Voyager does a lot of shaky and starts to shed blobs of itself, and Goop Kim loses contact with engineering as the computer tells him he'll be within hailing range in 5 minutes. Voyager is responding to a garbled distress call. We're rushing over there as fast as possible with teams ready to start a rescue operation. Ensign Paris calls out the distance to target as Tuvok reports they aren't responding to hails. We drop out of warp where the ship should have been to find only a slowly dispersing silver mist. There are no life signs. It's sad, of course, but space is a dangerous place and there's nothing we can do here. Janeway orders a note to be made in the ship's log before we set course for the Alpha Quadrant once more and fly away. After a disappointing last episode, Season 5 gets back to delivering the goods. Not only is this story a follow-up to a previous one, continuity being something I'm always looking out for, but it's also a damn fine tragic story in its own right. Much of that tragedy is down to Goop Janeway. I've mentioned previously that Janeway's laser focus on getting back to Earth has occasionally stepped over the line into obsession. Here, that single-mindedness is all the more lamentable, as it becomes a goal that would ultimately result in their destruction if she managed to achieve it. It's another reminder of just how much Janeway is defined by that need, seeing it as redemption for the choice she made all the way back in the pilot. Our Janeway, the original, had a chance to come to terms with that in the Season 5 premiere night, where the crew expressed support for her by mutinying rather than allowing her to sacrifice herself to avoid the same choice. Perhaps Goop Janeway has had no such reassurance and still carries the guilt of that original burden. Were their positions switched, would the Janeway of now still be so focused on saving her crew that she'd be willing to kill them in the process? All of that would be enough to carry the episode on its own, but we also dabble with the existential quandary of what defines a person. If we're the combination of our thoughts and memories, then does the fact that those thoughts and memories are copies make a difference to who we are? If you woke up tomorrow to the news that you were a perfect duplicate of another being, does that make you any less valid than the entity who experienced the events which formed the memories defining you both? Are you less entitled to the life you both remember purely because your cells have existed for less time? Are you less bound by the duties you both remember accepting? Have you any less reason to carry the grudges you bear simply because those affronts didn't happen to the body those memories currently inhabit? There's a spoiler warning here for Picard if you've not watched that. I'll start a 5-second timer for you to mute or skip when I finish this sentence, and there's a bar at the bottom to indicate when we're back in Voyager territory. The questions I just asked don't only apply to the Silver Goop versions of Voyager's crew. What implications do they have for the idea of thought transference in general? If having the same memories in a different body does not entitle you to continue that life, does that mean Robo-Picard has no right to claim he's a retired admiral or duty to uphold the principles to which he swore an oath? Hell, is he even entitled to put the name Picard on his wine? If you believe he's the same person because he has the same neural patterns, how are Goop Voyager's crew any different? Let's move on to giving out points, shall we? Some go to whoever was keeping an eye on the continuity in this one. Having Goop Paris still be a lieutenant because he didn't experience the events which resulted in original Paris's demotion is a nice touch, and one they could probably have got away with not making. I've said many times how much I love little details, so this pleased me greatly. More points go to Robert Duncan McNeill himself. He's given the chance to show some range in this one, the trauma at Goop B'Elanna's death in particular being convincingly done. I've regularly mocked the character of Paris, but it bears repeating that this is not a dislike of the actor. If I had a single complaint, it would be for the name of the episode. It's such an uninspired title for what turned out to be an excellent story. It feels petty to point out something so minor, but I genuinely struggle to find much else to complain about. If that's the price I have to pay for such delights, I'll do so without hesitation. End of episode.
But if replicators can recycle anything, then why aren't we just overing up trees and shit from planets that have a basic ecosystem but aren't inhabited? You know, all the ones that are, but we don't care about them.
Look, I really feel like you're overthinking this.
I just don't understand why the tech isn't...
You should stop worrying about it. Trust me.
What do you mean?
I mean the last guy who wondered about this stuff died on an away mission, right after he started asking questions. And the one before that got vaporized by a power conduit that was supposed to be turned off. Now I'm not saying that the replicators are inhabited by malevolent spirits who create food and materials in exchange for the corpses of anyone who dies on the ship, but I'm not saying they aren't either.
You know, now I think about it, Leola root's not actually all that bad. Oh...